On your feet! Get them going!
Forgot to add myself again. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever the case may be. Welcome to Cross Examinations Live. I'm your host, Mike S. Miller, and once again, I totally forgot to share out the video and stuff. So please wait with me here as I post this out to Facebook, the Twitters, and please do yourself as well. Like, subscribe, share, and do all that fun stuff. Let me copy this and post it over. If you are watching on Blacklist Universe, please do go over to the pinned tweet. Come here with us, which I am pinning right now. And join us on the other channel. That's where the fellowship will be. What is up, A.S. Brunner and Jean-Luc? Good day to you both. And let me, did I copy that? I did. Let me just drop this real quick in the Discord. And here we go. Live now. Bam. And we're cooking with gas. Trying to get things moving. And hello. Hi, everyone. So today, again, we're going to be going through Rise and Fall, the daily devotional, where we are going through 1st and 2nd Samuel. What are we doing today? We are doing 1st Samuel chapter 28. I will start that up in around about a half an hour, but let me cue it up now. Well, I don't have to cue it up now because we're actually still working our way through the 101... How did they phrase this? Craziest, strangest, most absurd things you find in the Bible. So let me present that. Actually, oh, you know what I can do? Let me real quick before we do that. Let me present the pages of Afar, because I didn't do any Afar. I didn't do much Afar sharing yesterday. Gosh, I've been just racked trying to find time to get stuff done. It seems like my wife is sick right now, so I'm pulling double parent duty, and trying to take care of her as well. So I'm a little razzle frazzled, if you know what I'm saying. Fraying at the ends, trying to pull double duty. Who the heck is knocking? I hope that's my son. I'm gonna ignore it. Somebody's knocking. I don't care. Whoever's out there. Anyways, here's what I didn't show, I don't think, the other day. So we've got Jesus before Pontius Pilate. They what did they call it? They say he's been dirty. That's kind of my sin, my unclean scribble, right? It's a symbol. I hope people understand what it means. And then he's silent before Pilate, and then Pilate's assistant reminds him, "Hey, you got a get out of jail free card." And Pilate says, "Come with me." Jesus, smiling, hopping along. So Pilate goes to the crowd and says, "Do you want this murdering dude, Barabbas, or do you want the King of the Jews?" And he says, "Which one do you want to get out of jail free?" It makes sense, right? Visually. And then one of the Pharisees screams, "Barabbas!" And then the crowd follows him, "Barabbas!" And he says, "Well, what about the King of the Jews?" And they say, "Crucify him." And then Pilate's like, "Well, what did he do wrong?" And they said again, "Crucify him." And Jesus is like, "Well, it is what it is." And then the soldiers took him away, and Pilate's scratching his head, going, "What is the deal?" And then they strip Jesus of his cloak, and dude in the background, they tie him to a post, and then they begin the scourging. And I didn't really want to belabor the scourging. I noticed that the scourging is only mentioned in John, and it's one sentence. Unless I missed another one, which it might be in another one, but I thought I flipped through them and I couldn't find them. So I literally had to look it up, like where is it in scripture that he's scourged? And it came up with John 19:1. So scourge. Each of these, I don't know if I want to do the times 10 thing because that's whatever. I think it's enough that I have him being whipped and beaten. And you can tell the dude doing the scourging, he's getting progressively more and more tired. And so I was thinking, this is the last page I've done. I was thinking the next page, it would be maybe like a passage of time or like, and then like the last panel is like the dude doing the scourging is just like tired and like maybe you just see Jesus's hands. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out the next panel, but I don't want to shy away from the brutality, but at the same time, this is a kid's book, so I don't want to show the brutality. So how do I show the emotionality of the brutality without showing the graphic violence? And this is what I've come up with so far. So anyways, once again, hello, Ash Brunner, Amy Lester, Joe K, Missy, Joe K, Zax. I know, Joe. Oh, a nice children's book for a life full of trauma. Yeah, but it is what it is. It's what it has to be, right? So what am I gonna do? What can I do other than portray it in a way that's not going to make people throw up? All right, back to the 101 Bible Absurdities challenge. Here we have challenge number 84. God has a heart-to-heart with Moses through a burning bush. God has a long heart-to-heart talk with Moses through a burning bush. I'm not sure why that's absurd. See, from a Christian perspective, you're like, yeah, so what? And I mean, I've seen portrayals of the burning bush where the context of it being a burning bush could just be that it's a glowing bush or something like that. It is burning, it is hot. Maybe it's not even hot. It's just a fire, but it's not consuming. It's nobody really knows what that means, like physically, with the bush that is burning but is not consumed, right? But yeah, that God would, you have to completely discount the miracles and the concept of God existing to believe that this is an absurdity. What are the other things he said? This a crazy, strange, absurd thing. It's really not, right? If you believe in God, I mean, first of all, you believe God created the bush. So you believe God created fire. You believe God created all this. So God, the act of a miracle is God going outside of the prescribed rules that he's created for the creation. As long as they don't go outside of logic. I don't believe God can be illogical. You can challenge me on that if you can think of something. But yeah, how this is absurd in the context of there being a creator God who controls every atom, every molecule, every fiber of being, then no, I don't see how it is. What is that? Oh no, that's too squirrely. I was gonna talk about this. There's a cross-shaped molecule that literally binds all of the cells of our bodies together. And I mean, it's just very interesting because it's like literally like the shape of the cross you see down here. That's the shape of the molecule. Very kind of curious. But yeah. Anyways, A.S. Brunner says, I'm going to make the most horrific series of events in the Bible into a kid's book. Well, yeah. See, here's the thing. You go through this whole story. We're at 145 pages now. So you go through this whole story, and it's very much just a fun little adventure, a fun tale, teaching lessons. You get to understand and know who this adorable little Christ character is. And then you get to a point where you're like, whoa, wait, what's happening? This guy that everybody loves, except for obviously these Pharisees, these guys with the funny hats and cloaks, everybody else loves him. And then these guys have him ultimately beaten and murdered. And I think people who are introduced to the story of Christ through this will very much have that kind of relationship as they're reading through it. And then also they won't realize, after a while, they'll forget completely that these characters are all covered in mud and mire. They're covered in sin. And they won't even, after a few pages, they'll just kind of forget. And they'll get so accustomed to it, which speaks to our own sin, right? We forget about it. We get accustomed to it. We don't notice that we're covered in sin. And then when Christ is crucified, the sin is hammered to the cross with the nails, and all the sin starts coming off of the people and gathering onto Christ. And then you have a visual representation of his spiritual truth that nobody was ready for if they haven't gotten to that part of the book yet. And then they're like, suddenly they remember that they're all covered in sin. And then suddenly they see all of their sin on Jesus. And then when he dies, it disappears because it's paid for. Tetelestai. It is finished. Melissa says, I was thinking these absurdities would have more than unsubstantiated opinions backing them up. You know what? Hey, maybe there's a better list of absurdities out there that I can tackle next time, but I want to finish this one. 83, God shows Moses magic tricks. God tells Moses to throw his rod on the ground. It becomes a snake. Then grab the snake by the tail and become a rod again. Next, make your hand appear leprous, then cure it. And finally, pour water on the ground and it will turn into blood. Okay, again, is it absurd? I mean, so basically, it was very, you know what the absurd thing in that story is? It's not Moses doing it, because obviously God can do anything. He is the miracle maker. He can make the stones cry out if the people weren't, praising Jesus on the triumphal entry. The absurd part of this story is that the Egyptian magicians did likewise. When Moses turned his rod, or actually when God turned Moses' rod into a serpent, the Egyptian priests or magicians, they did too. And then God showed that he was the bigger snake, or however you want to phrase it, and Moses' snake ate the other two. But they copied his quote-unquote magic tricks, but somehow or another, I don't know, were they the gods of, and oh gosh, this goes into a whole another thing about the book of Enoch, and like whether there were angels who were considered gods, fallen angels, obviously, who would be considered gods, who could do miraculous things. Obviously, the thing that they can't do is travel through time, right? The time is the domain of God alone. Only he knows the end from the beginning. That's even Jesus in his human incarnation did not know the end from the beginning, but only the Father. So only the Father knows that. But it doesn't say that only the Father can do miracles. In fact, I believe Jesus says that another will come and he will do miracles and you will believe him, right? Paraphrasing the end times, right? Talking about, so it's not to say that demons can't do quote unquote miracles, which I guess makes that less absurd, because if they can, then it makes sense that the power behind the principalities and powers behind the magicians of Egypt were capable of mimicking God's miracles in one way or another, because they did, right? Although I don't know if they did the leprous hand thing, but it didn't appear leprous. It was leprous. I think that was the first case of a healed leper in the Bible, of healed leprosy. So it was after Moses. And then there was that one king who he had leprosy, right? Was it leprosy? And then he asked, who was it, Elijah or Elisha or somebody, and he just sent him a message and was like, just go dip in the Jordan River 7 times and your leprosy will go away. I think that was what it was. Joe says there's an interesting part in Silas's, who's Silas, rant against Christians about Egyptians being masters of magic tricks. Celsus? I don't know. I haven't read him. Moses' staff that turned into a snake swallowed the Egyptian snakes. I said that. What up, Drake? What up, Alpha Proto? All right, so I think that covers that, right? All right, 82. God decides to kill Moses because his son wasn't circumcised. God decides to kill Moses because his son. Lucky his Egyptian wife took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son. Exodus 4:24 to 26. Did he decide to kill Moses? I vaguely remember this story. Hold on a second. All right. Exodus 4:24. Exodus. Oh, sorry about the yawning. Terrible. And it came to pass, by the way, I said unto thee, let my son. Wait. And the Lord said unto Moses, when thou goest down to return to Egypt, see that thou do all those wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in thine hand. But I will harden his heart, and he shall not let the people go. And thou shalt say unto Pharaoh, thus saith the Lord, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. And I say unto thee, let my son go, that he may serve me. If thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay thy son, even thy firstborn. And it came to pass by the way in the inn that the Lord met him and sought to kill him. And Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at his feet and said, surely a bloody husband art thou to me. So he let him go, and she said, a bloody husband thou art because of the circumcision. And the Lord said to Aaron, go into the wilderness to meet Moses. All right, let me see. I got to back this up a little bit. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses, and he said, is not Aaron the Levite thy brother? I know that he can speak well. Also, behold, he cometh forth to meet thee, and when he see thee, he will be glad in his heart, and thou shalt speak unto him, and put words in his mouth, and I will be in thy mouth, and with his mouth, and will teach you what ye shall do. And he shall be thy spokesman unto the people, and he shall be to thee instead of a mouth, and thou shalt be to him instead of God. And thou shalt take this rod in thine hand, wherewith thou sent. And Moses returned to Jethro, his brother-in-law. Let me go, pray thee, and return to my brethren which are in Egypt, and see whether ye be yet alive. And Jethro said to Moses, go in peace. And the Lord said unto Moses in Midian, go, return to Egypt, for all the men are dead which sought thy life. And Moses took his wife and his son, let them up on the ass, returned to Egypt, see all this. Gosh, do I need to go further back? What is in thy hand? Believe in our heart, where it was. And put on the hand, believe in that. More, and then no sin of the Lord, I am not eloquent. Yeah, this was such a glancing thing. It's really unclear with all the masculine pronouns. Yeah, I mean, yeah, who exactly was God seeking to? All right, 24. the Lord met him and sought to kill him. And it came to pass, by the way, in the end. Okay, wait. So he's going. In a forest, so I go there, marry a friend, I'll say that's not even my firstborn. It came to pass, by the way, in the end, the Lord met him and sought to kill him. Then Zipporah took a sharp stone, cut off the foreskin of her son, and cast it at his feet. And Sir said, surely a bloody husband art thou to me. Okay, so the Lord's there, sought to kill him. Who is him? Because they're talking about my son, and I say unto thee, let my son go. All right, hold on. But he's not talking about my son. He's talking about, dadgummit. He's talking about Israel. Israel is my son. This is a little bit confusing. I'll be honest. All right. Let my son go, that he may serve me. If thou refusest to let him go, behold, I will slay thy son, even thy firstborn. But before that, he said, thus saith the Lord's son, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. And he's saying, let my son go, meaning let Israel go, that he may serve me. If you refuse to, I'll kill your firstborn. And it came to pass, by the way, in the inn, that the Lord met him and sought to kill him. Then Zipporah took a sharp stone, cut off the foreskin of her son. I don't know how old her son was at the time, but hopefully it was just an infant. But okay. So he let him go. And she said, a bloody husband thou art, because of the circumcision. So I don't know who she's talking. Her husband is Moses. I'm sorry. I'm supposed to be the one with the answers here, and this is just confusing the rot out of me. What chapter and verse is this? This is Exodus chapter 4, verse 24. May need to cross-reference with another translation. Yeah, let me grab Blue Letter Bible here. And Blue Letter Bible. Exodus 4:24 or 24:4? No, Exodus 4. 4 and 24. Let's change to. Let's try the New Living Translation. 4:24. On the way, at a place where Moses and his family had stopped for the night, the Lord confronted him and was about to kill him. And it came to pass, by the way in the inn, that the Lord met him and sought to kill him. Okay, I got to go to the Greeks here. Now it came about at the lodging place on the way that the Lord met him and sought to put him to death. She touched his feet with the foreskin and said, now you are a bridegroom of blood to me. She was referring to him. After that, the Lord left him alone. I don't know who the Lord was. Okay, his thing is that he was going to kill Moses, right? This is the strange complaint that he was going to kill Moses. Is it just me, or does it read like he was going to kill Moses' son? Which I think, for not being circumcised? Hey, that's on God. That's his life and death is up to God, right? So we can never really nail that down. And say that if God were to kill anybody, it would be unjust, right? Amy says, I couldn't figure out who him is. Honestly, a lot of ancient Hebrew has to be uncoded and a bit of guesswork for the way the vowels are recorded. Yeah, I can't either. So is it absurd? I mean, like I said, life and death is in the hands of God, so I wouldn't say it's absurd. Curious? Misunderstood? I certainly can't having a hard time understanding. So yeah, this is the closest one I think so far he's had to having an argument that this is at least it's at least strange. I've always read it as being God wanting to kill Moses. And would that be okay? Let's say that's the case. Is that because Moses, who's supposed to be the spiritual leader um, of Israel, come to set them free, he is not abiding in righteousness? Because the way, if that is the case, it would seem to me, because of Zipporah's instant reaction, that she snipped her kid right then and there without anyone telling her. This is a conversation they had before. And it seems to me that a case could be made then that the argument was between Moses and Zipporah, right? And that she didn't want to circumcise her son because she's from Midian, right? She's not a Jew. Jethro, her father, was, I don't know, they weren't Jewish. They weren't, I mean, God instituted circumcision with the Jews, with Moses. And so in the righteousness of, oh, no, that's not right. It was a way back. Was that? Yeah, no. Circumcision goes back to, does it go all the way back to Abraham? So anyways, Zipporah, they're Midianites. They're not Jews. So I can see that could have been a contention, like a marital contention. And then, but it is God's command that his people be circumcised. So that is the covenant. And if Moses, as the leader of the Jews who's come to save the Jews, is not in standing with the law, then it is an abrogation of the law, which is obviously punishable by death, right? So I could see that as an understanding of why, if that were the scenario, which from the reading, if it is Moses, and it's, what's telling to me is it is Zipporah, right? Zipporah is like, maybe they had this conversation and Moses is like, if our son is not circumcised, God is going to kill me. Hello. Something like, and then like they're just walking on the way to the inn. God shows up and he's like, yeah, Moses is right. I'm going to kill him now because you haven't circumcised your son. And then she's like, oh, for bloody hell. And she chops off, the little skin and throws it at Moses's feet and says, you're a bloody man. Because she clearly didn't want to circumcise her son via that scripture. That's the way it seems to me. Very clear. Let's mutilate our strategic body members in an era without antibiotics. What could go wrong? Actually, that's a miracle, Joe. That's the miracle of the 8th-day circumcision. The 8th day is the day when the human body, what do you call it? The antibodies, something along the lines of the antibodies in the body are at its peak on the 8th day of life. And that just happens to be the day that your immune system is like running on full tilt on the 8th day of life. And that is the day that God prescribed circumcision. So, and it's not mutilation. It's God's plan. So, and yeah, that's, if you don't know this discovery was like 19th century, early 20th century, something like that. There's a reason why for 100 years, every male in America was circumcised pretty much, right? It's because a doctor discovered that his Jewish, I think he was an OBGYN, his Jewish patients had practically zero cervical cancer. And the conclusion that he came to was that it was because the Jewish men were circumcised. Because rather than having a nice warm pocket of folded skin for bacteria to grow and infections to build and then be delivered into the cervix, whereby they could then act as pathogens and cause cervical cancer. They did this study and they figured that was a truism, that was real, and so they started circumcising all the men in America, all the boys in America, to cut down on cervical cancer. So cervical cancer, that is why. Well, it's not. I'm not gonna say it's why. It's obviously part of the covenant, but the fact that the Jews were circumcised lent to much healthier women in their private parts. Well, if God didn't want foreskins, he wouldn't have created them in the first place. It's not quackery, Joe. It's statistical reality. Now, here's the thing. Men tend to wash a lot better now than they did back in the old days. But remember, for a long time, dudes, people didn't bathe that often. Bathing wasn't as easy as it is today. You don't just run to the faucet and turn it on and get hot water, Oftentimes, I mean, even in the best of times, people only bathe once a week, right? The foreskin is there to shield stuff so that they won't chafe. I have no problem with chafing, bro. I have no problem. Oh, you're in Europe. That's right. You guys didn't do that. But in America, I bet you guys have a lot more cervical cancer for your women too. I would guess very much. What is up, Mountain Pass Music? Welcome. White blood cells. That's probably the case. Yeah. I'm not going to go back and look up the study right now. But yeah. Anyways, Moses and Aaron turned the Nile River into blood. Okay, here's a weird thing. So I remember watching Once Upon a Time, not the show. I just mean Once Upon a Time I watched this. They were trying to do a scientific explanation for the 10 plagues of Egypt. I'm trying to remember what. And so the first plague was blood, right? And their thing was that they believed it was red tide. The scientific people, they believed it was red tide. It turned all the water red. And then what happens? Frogs, right? When the water became poisonous, the frogs jumped out of the water, out of the Nile, and that became the plague. And then when the frogs died, the flies laid eggs, and the maggots, and then the flies was the next plague. And they tried to do this whole thing where, like, circumstantially what caused what, right? And then all the way until the firstborn. I can't remember what they claimed about that, but they're trying to make it seem, and it is something that happens. Like, God does use the natural forces to, like I believe Sodom and Gomorrah was probably a meteorite, right? That exploded in space, caused a atomic blast in the air, wiped out those two cities. But God, that was God's plan. God knew it was going to happen. Did God make it happen? I mean, he didn't stop it from happening. He surely right. Red tide kills the fish, the frogs and flies, and then the volcano blocked out the sun or something. Yeah, I don't remember. I'd love to find that old video again. It was very interesting. I watched it, I think, before I was a Christian. I was like, that's interesting stuff. But is it ridiculous? No. Again, miracles are by design not natural circumstances. So God can use natural circumstances to produce a miracle or to answer prayer. That's his whole shtick. The funny part is, like, orchestrating like a natural event that will affect millions of people and coordinating the answering of prayers of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, and a natural event. You know what I'm saying? It's like the level of orchestration is just mind-boggling, because everything affects everything else, right? It's a butterfly effect. All right, let's stop this and get on back to 1 Samuel, and then we'll get back to God sending the plagues next time around. All right, we were in, what am I in? 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel chapter 28. And then present, share, screen, window. And again, like, subscribe, share. If you're watching over on Blacklist, Universe Mountain Pass Music, please click the chat in the pinned comment, and it'll take you over to the other channel where everybody's hanging out and fellowshipping in the chat. So, the Wangxi liver turned blood red last year. Oh, well, that's pleasant. Is it Yangtze? You're spelling it like different. Is that the Yangtze River you're talking about? I've never seen it spelled with a G. I mean, the second G, sure, but not the first G. Where's my... I spilled a little bit of my coffee. All right. First Samuel, chapter 28. Where's Edwin when I need someone to read for me? And it came to pass in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies together for warfare to fight with Israel. Kind of reminds me of what's going on this weekend. And Achish said unto David, Know thou assuredly that thou shalt go out with me to battle, thou and thy men. So the Philistine Achish is recruiting David and his men to go fight against the Jews. I don't think they want to do that. And David said to Achish, Surely thou shalt know what thy servant can do. And Achish said to David, Therefore will I make thee keeper of mine head forever. And now Samuel was dead, and all Israel had lamented him and buried him in Ramah, even in his own city. And Saul had put away those that had familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. That's interesting. I mean, it's good that he is, but it's interesting that he is as well, considering Saul's track record. And the Philistines gathered themselves together and came and pitched in Shunem, and Saul gathered all Israel together, and they pitched in Gilboa. And when Saul saw the host of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart greatly trembled. And when Saul inquired of the Lord answered him not, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophets. Gee, I wonder why. Was it maybe because you killed all the priests of Israel? I mean, not that he would have talked to him anyways, but I can't get anyone on the phone. Oh yeah, I killed all the telephone people. Jeez. Then said Saul unto his servants, oh, hey, Alpha says, Daldakan River turned to blood red in 2016. Whee! All kinds of fun going on. All right. Then said Saul unto his servants, Seek me a woman that hath a familiar spirit, that I may go to her. And inquire of her. And his servant said to him, Behold, there is a woman that hath a familiar spirit at Endor. Yub. And Saul disguised himself and put on other raiment, and he went, and 2 men with him. And they came to the woman by night, and he said, I pray thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit, and bring me him up, whom I shall name unto thee. And the woman said unto him, Behold, thou knowest what Saul hath done, how he hath cut off those that have familiar spirits, and the wizards out of the land. Wherefore then layest thou a snare for my life, to cause me to die? And Saul sware to her by the Lord, saying, As the Lord liveth, there shall no punishment happen to thee for this thing. Then said the woman, Whom shall I bring up unto thee? And he said, Bring me up Samuel. And when the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice, and the woman spake to Saul, saying, Why hast thou deceived me? For thou art Saul. I mean, come on. He's like 7 feet tall. You should have had a clue. And the king said unto her, Be not afraid, for what sawest thou? And the woman said unto Saul, I saw gods ascending out of the earth. And he said unto her, What form is he of? And she said, An old man cometh up, and he is covered with a mantle. And Saul perceived that it was Samuel. and he stopped with his face to the ground and bowed himself. I just noticed something. Because I've always been on this query about whether or not we go to heaven, and like how does, once you're gone, you're present with the Lord, is that in the future, what, all that kind of stuff. And I've always wondered about this one, but then I just read that part. What saw you? God's ascending out of the earth. Where did Jesus go? Into Sheol, into Abraham's bosom, to retrieve. See, obviously this is before Christ, but he went to retrieve the souls of the Jews who had been in. And I don't understand it. It's a metaphysical reality, just barely expounded on in the scripture. But they were in a place in Sheol called Abraham's bosom. And I know there's some people try to say that that's got something to do with purgatory, but they were released from there. They were taken from there by Christ, right? They were released from, but Samuel would have been there because he died and this was pre-Christ. So if there was a waiting place prior to Christ in the earth, this explains it. How how she says, I see gods. What was the word? Ascending out of the earth. And she described Samuel to Saul. I never really thought about that. Did she really have a vision of dead people who know nothing and are asleep according to Ecclesiastes? Or was she just a charlatan like every other fortune teller? Well, I'm going to say what I just said, that they were in Sheol. Jesus went to set them free from Sheol. So between here and there, I think post-Christ, we live in a different reality because there's no Sheol for believers. When we die, we are present with the Lord, right? It doesn't say when we die, we're present with the Lord in the Old Testament, does it? And if it does, then we're in a space of contradiction, because then why would Jesus have to go and release them from Abraham's bosom? I think the different dispensations of the Spirit, of Christ, of the Father on earth, and the metaphysical world surrounding that entire dynamic it's not something that we can say like it's printed in black and white. This is exactly how everything happens. So there's a lot of conjecture and speculation that has to go along with our understanding, our exegesis of what the scriptures mean. So yeah, witches are amongst the least trustworthy people that I've encountered anyway. Sheol is literally the Hebrew word for grave. Yeah, but Abraham's bosom is not the Hebrew word for grave. You know what I'm saying, Seven? So I don't know, and I'm fairly certain nobody has that black and white understanding of it. So I'm just going to go with that speculation. The Bible never says this isn't actually Samuel that I know of, right? And he said unto her, what form is he? Face to the ground and bowed himself. And Samuel, wait, hold on a second. An old man coming up, he is covered with a mantle. And Saul perceived that it was Samuel, and he stooped with his face to the ground and bowed himself. And Samuel said to Saul, why hast thou disquieted me to bring me up? And Samuel answered, I am sore distressed, for the Philistines make war against me, and God departed from me, and answereth me no more, neither by prophets nor by dreams. Therefore I have called thee, that thou mayest make known unto me what I shall do. Then said Samuel, wherefore then dost thou ask of me, seeing the Lord is departed from thee, and is become thine enemy? And the Lord hath done to him as he spake by me, for the Lord hath rent the kingdom out of thine hand, and given it to thy neighbor, even to David, because thou obeyest not the voice of the Lord, nor executest his fierce wrath upon Amalek. Therefore hath the Lord done this thing unto thee this day. Moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel with thee into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow shalt thou and thy sons be with me. Okay, so this is how you know. This is how you know it's Samuel, right? He's prophesying. Prophecy is only the prerogative of God and his prophets. So this has to be either God pretending to be Samuel, or it's Samuel prophesying in the name of God, because the Lord shall deliver his host to Israel into the hands of the Philistines. He totally prophesied what would happen the next day. Then Saul fell straightway along all the earth and was sore afraid because of the words of Samuel, and there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no bread all the day nor all the night. The one thing that I would contend against what I've already said is that Saul perceived that it was Samuel and stooped with his face to the ground and bowed himself. Any angel of the Lord, now I grant you this is Samuel, is not an angel of the Lord who might not have this instantaneous reaction, right? But any angel of the Lord, if this was an angel, would have said, "Get up, don't bow down to me," right? God can use anything or anyone to prophesy, even a donkey. That's fair enough. You could also use Samuel. Abraham's bosom is only mentioned once in a parable told to the Pharisees. The parable of Lazarus and the rich man is not consistent with the rest of Scripture, but it was consistent with their myths. Okay, I'm not going to keep doing this because I've got very little time to get through the rest of this chapter. No. If you want to keep that going in the comments section after the fact, please do. Where was I? And Saul, and the woman came unto Saul and saw that he was sore troubled, and said unto him, Behold, thine handmaid hath obeyed thy voice, and I have put my life in thy hand. I have hearkened unto thy words which thou spokest to me. Now therefore I pray thee, hearken thou also unto the voice of thine handmaid, and let me set a morsel of bread before thee, and eat, that thou mayest have strength when thou goest on thy way. But he refused and said, I will not eat. But his servants together with the woman compelled him, and he hearkened unto their voice. So he arose from the earth and sat upon the bed. And the woman had a fat calf in the house, and she hastened and killed it, and took flour and kneaded it, and baked unleavened bread thereof. And she brought it before Saul and before his servants, and they did eat, and they rose up and went away that night. All right. So back to what 7 is actually saying is careful study is needed on the parable of Lazarus and the rich man. Right. But here's the thing. You're making Jesus out to be a liar then. Doesn't mean it was actually awakened the ghost of Samuel. Right? Does Jesus doesn't portray that parable as something of a work of fiction. He doesn't portray Abraham's bosom as a work of fiction. Right? So if Jesus isn't portraying it as a work of fiction, and Jesus went to Abraham's bosom, to Sheol, however you want to phrase it, to what is that scripture? Actually, gosh darn it, we need to focus on what's at hand. I squirrel too much, and 7, you're always dragging me into squirreling in this. Let's get to Samuel chapter 28. 28. Wise counsel. All right. Let me bring it up. Okay. The most glaring issue in this chapter is the practice of the occult. Mediums, fortune tellers, Ouija boards, tarot cards, horoscopes, astrology, all are linked to the demonic. These may seem harmless, but we need to flee from these practices and others associated with them. They are outside of God's will for your life and can lead you to a connection with the demonic. If you have participated in these practices, please come up for prayer on a Sunday morning or seek help from one of our prayer ministry team members. We would love to pray over you. I would also like to point out, not time to derail. I know, but this isn't the only time that the dead prior to Christ's emptying of the Abraham's bosom, this isn't the only time that the dead were seen and communicating. Who was at the top of the mountain when Christ was transfigured? Moses and Elijah. Moses and Elijah were dead. Well, okay, Elijah was raptured, but Moses was dead. Moses died. Elijah was he was raptured, so he probably went straight to heaven. He probably didn't even go to Abraham's bosom, right? So that the dead can speak prior to that's a reality in the New Testament. There's no reason to absolutely discount it in the Old Testament, even if it was at the hands of a witch of Endor. So when has it happened before? It happened after. Yeah. That popped into my head, so I'm assuming God put it there. All right. Saul is now in a position where knowing the will of the Lord is unachievable. He cut himself off from the priesthood at Nob. God rejected him, and Samuel is dead. In this chapter, we see how God is faithful and true to his word. Saul is faced with his lifestyle choice of pursuing God only when he needs him, rather than in all the seasons of his life. Saul expects to experience God's blessings and favor even though he isn't walking with God, and he lives in habitual disobedience and rebellion. Ironically, Samuel has already spoken to Saul about his rebellion and compared it to divination when God tore Israel away from Saul's family line. For rebellion is as the sin of divination, because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has also rejected you from being king. Yet Saul is still asking Samuel why he isn't hearing from the Lord. Of today's reading are verses 17 and 19 of today's readings are the crux of this chapter and are an answer to Saul's inquiry. In the popular video, It's Not About the Nail, a woman with a nail in her head complains to her husband that he doesn't listen to her. The man tries to fix the problem for his wife, but she is frustrated at his suggestions to pull the nail out and instead wants his empathy. It is obvious in the video that if she listens to her husband's wise counsel, her issues will be resolved. At one point, Saul is surrounded by wise counsel, priests, God, Samuel, etc., but he doesn't heed their direction. Instead, he chooses to disregard their godly wisdom and live in partial obedience to God. Partial obedience is actually a choice to live in full rebellion to God. The wife in the video wants her wise counsel to give her what she wanted, not what she needed, and Saul's view of wise counsel was similar. He wanted his counsel to listen to him and only offer to help how and when he wanted their help. However, counsel is wise when they give us the wisdom we need, not the wisdom we want. It isn't enough to be surrounded by wisdom from others. You have to actually allow it to shape your life and decisions. Question number 1. Who is your wise counsel? Do you have godly people who speak truth into your life? Yeah, I talked to Edwin, and it's funny because most of my wise counsel is internet, this YouTube related thing, because it's like Elliot, who I met through YouTube. Well, no, I knew Elliot kind of through Facebook for years, but we became really good friends through YouTube. There's Elliot, there's Edwin on occasion. My buddy Oli, I talked to my father-in-law, talked to people at church. Yeah, I got wise folks in my life. Number 2. How are you letting your wise counsel shape you? I think my daughter might be having some fits. Can you go check on Eden? She's in the living room, I think. I might have to wrap this up. If y'all could pray for my daughter, she's been having some weird fits. It's been an issue. It hasn't been much of an issue lately. Anyways, yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up. Lord, I want to follow your wise counsel above my own thoughts, opinions, and pride. I repent of the times I have disregarded your leading. Please forgive me, humble my heart, and make my ears sensitive to your still small voice. Thanks everybody for being here. I'm gonna bug out. She having fits? Yeah. Okay. We'll see you on the next episode. God bless you guys, and peace out.